Hello, welcome to the Life-Paced EMT course. Congratulations for signing up to the EMS program here at the Alabama Fire College. So my name is Josh Rowe. I will be your EMS training specialist. Personally, I have 15 years in the EMS service. I also continue to work professionally in the field to this very day. This presentation that we're about to go through is going to serve as your introduction as an Alabama Fire College student and as hopefully a future EMT in the field. You should have received an email that kind of goes over the basic gist of the course. It explains how you'll be expected to go through the material, quizzes, exams, touches on rotations a little bit, skills and such. The thing is I decided to go ahead and just make an orientation video. That way, you don't always just rely on an email. You can always come back to this video, fast forward, pause, rewind, whatever you need to do just to kind of go over certain things again. So we're basically just going to go over the entire program. The only exception is I'm going to leave out rotations and skills because that's going to get its own video. So, first things first, and this is one of the common questions I get about the program, the drug screen and the background check. So every student has to do this, period. Whether you're on campus, off campus, you have to do it. The only thing that's going to be different is that you guys can actually choose to do the drug screen and the background check in your area. The only difference is you're not going to do it on your own. You're going to do it through a testing service called A&G testing. And this is for all students. All right, so it doesn't matter if you work for a government program such as the military or something else that has to do with state, Social Security office, it doesn't matter. Everybody has to go through this and you have to use the A&G testing service. And the reason for that is nobody else sees the results. All right, they will do all the testing in confidentiality and then the results will come to me. And at that point, there's no third party that has to see that material. So, for example, if something happens and I have to call you back with a question, you don't have to worry about, that information passing through 20 other people's hands or somebody else that you work with potentially seeing that information. So it just comes directly to me. So all students have to go through this service. And I have an example of the form on the next slide, and you'll see that there's a QR code that is attached to it. And so what you'll do is when you open the email and you open this form, all you have to do is take your cell phone or your iPad or tablet, anything with a camera on it, scan the QR code, and it'll take you through the A&G registration process. And it's very simple. It's been simplified over the years. It used to be it was two different forms that you had to fill out. Now it's just one. You will sign up with the service, complete all the questionnaires, and you will opt into the drug screen and the background check. Now, some things, all the contact information will be on the form, and I'll show it to you on the next slide. If you have a question about the drug screen and the background check, I'm not that person. All right. I just receive the results to make sure that you're good to participate in the course. If there's any problems with signing up or locating a facility, A&G is the service that you need to call. They're the ones that are going to help you through that process. You will have a due date for the drug screen and background check. We cannot spend all class waiting for you to get this done. It'll probably be within the first three weeks to maybe even a month. I'll give you to get this done. But after that, if it is not finished by the due date, that will be grounds to withdraw you from the class. And we don't want that. Everybody's here. So let's just continue to knock out these due dates and not have these issues. So like I said, here's an example of the actual the form that you're going to receive. This is exactly the form you're going to receive, okay? All right, so up here on the right, let's get the old laser pointer here, see if that works for us. There we go. Right here has all their contact information, where their physical building is located. But more importantly, there is their phone number. This is the number you can contact if you have any issues trying to set up an appointment or find a location. That is going to be step number one, all right? There's their hours, so don't call them on a Friday at 7 at night. There's nobody there that's going to answer that. Okay? Here's the instructions that walk you through it. You have two options. If you are local, you can go to option one, which is pay $55, and it walks you through that process. And if you're outside, which is people that are going to be far outside of town, go with option two. Yes, it's unfortunately a little bit more, but this is going to be the one that allows you to use a testing facility within their network that's close to you, so that it's a little bit more convenient. All right, there's their website right there, and there's the QR code. All right, this is what you'll scan. So for some reason, if your QR code is not working on your phone, there's your email, your website address, there's contact information there. And if you look at the very, very bottom, it reiterates all this contact information. Sorry, my head's going to block some of this information. All right, next up. Let's talk about required submissions that you have to send to registration. So if you're in this class and you're watching this video, well, the good news is you filled out an application packet, okay? Should look just like this guy right here, right? This is the form that's on our website. You clicked it, you downloaded it, and you filled it out and you submit it to registration. Well, a good chunk of this stuff that I have on the screen is a part of this, but for some reason, or especially on our online students, but also on campus, we have people that still don't submit a lot of these items. So what we're having to do now is make it a part of, if you do not complete it, do not submit it, it is going to keep you from signing up from rotations. And the longer you wait, the less time you have to complete your rotations. So let's just go over these one by one so that we know that you've heard me tell you that you need these things. So number one, we have a high school diploma or GED. Okay. For some reason, this is potentially tough to locate for some, whether a family member had it, a life event like a house fire, a flood, it's damaged, you can't find it. All right. So if you cannot find the physical copy, that's okay. Contact the school that you graduated from, see if they have a transcript. Okay, if they have a transcript that says, hey, you graduated, that'll work. All right, if you went to college, good news is you had to submit this to them as well. They're going to have a record or some kind of transcript or application form that says this person did have the diploma. All right, so any of those will work. Next up, we have the driver's license. All right, you don't have to be an avid driver, but it needs to be some form that's in date. All right, because you're going to need this when it comes to signing up for not only rotations, but when you actually have to get your licensure, apply for your national registry test. All this is going to be required anyway. All right, so this guy needs to be in date. And we're all bad about forgetting to look at when this thing goes out of date. Me personally, I was literally a week out before I realized, hey, I asked all these guys to look at their driver's license and see when it expires. When does mine expire? And it was literally like a couple days away, and I had to rush to get mine done. So it's okay. Some of you guys may even have some driver's licenses that expire while you're in class. If that happens, you may get a notification from registration saying, hey, this is going to expire. Just make sure you take care of it as soon as you can. All right. Next up, we have the completed statement of understanding. Once again, it's included in this packet. All right. You open your packet up. You should have filled it out and submitted it. For some reason, people just forget to, add it in there. They pull these packets apart as they finish them and just forget to submit them. Not a problem. You can re-download it and just fill it out and submit it again. But the statements of understanding, really simple. It just goes over like the felony policy, goes over background checks and all that stuff again. Weapons policy, guys, should go without saying, should be common sense, but obviously you're not going to take a weapon with you while you're on rotations or skills or anything like that, okay? And I know that I do have some people that are in law enforcement. Just realize that while you're on a rotation, you cannot be packing heat, okay? You got to keep that stuff safely in your vehicle, tucked away. All right, so there's that, and we already talked about drug screen. You don't have to worry about classroom behavior because you're not going to physically be in a classroom, but what you do have to realize is it also encompasses how you behave while you're at a rotation site or while you're at a fire department or ambulance service. Guys, you just need to be on your best behavior, okay? I'm not saying, you can't have fun. You can, but it needs to be within the bounds of not getting in trouble with the people that work there, not having a supervisor having to come and talk to you. Just treat it like I call it PG-13, right? So as long as you stay in those kind of parameters, you should be fine. But just know that you can't judge people, you can't make fun of patients, that kind of stuff. Just kind of hold it inside, but don't say it out loud. Just know that you're going to have non-traditional work hours, right? I mean, the good news is you're going to kind of have your schedule as far as being able to make it your own when it comes to the classwork, but just know that we all have an idea of what we'd like to do for rotations, but at the same time, we're at the mercy of these services that offer this benefit to you. So you're going to have to work within their non-traditional schedules in order to get these rotations done. So just know that we're going to do our best to make these things happen in a reasonable amount of time, but there are things that are outside of our control and your control too that you're just going to have to work with. There's also the photo release statement. Once again, you guys are not on campus, so this is probably not a good thing. But if, for example, you did come to campus to do skills or any kind of training, if the girl from upstairs, the graphic designer, decides that she wants to do some pictures to update our social network stuff, she may take pictures of you. So, I mean, obviously, she's not just going to just come in here and snap some photos and slap them online. They're going to run it by you, but just know that there is a possibility that where that can happen. All right. Health history. This is a real quick rundown. It's not a full physical, but it's right in front of the physical form that's in your packet. Okay. It just says who you are and some basic stuff like, have you ever lost consciousness before? Ever had a concussion? Have you ever stayed overnight in the hospital? Heat exhaustion. Have you ever broken your neck? That's a pretty big one. Or had a spinal cord injury. Any kind of heart condition, specifically like a murmur, high blood pressure. You don't have to go into a lot of detail, but if you do answer yes on these, just do a quick explanation because a lot of these are stuff that's easy to manage with medications and things of that nature. But if there's any special considerations, we need to be aware of it. It's just anything that we have to work around to, help you have a better experience. So make sure you put that in there. All right. And then lastly, you need to provide a record of your MMR. This is your vaccine record that you had all through your scholastic career. So while you're in elementary school, middle school, high school, even college, you had to have that little bitty card that had a record of all the vaccines that you got throughout your school career. Now, this little guy likes to go missing as well. It is very hard to locate. All right, for some people, their parents got it and then they stuck it somewhere and they don't know where it's at anymore. Whatever. So sometimes it could be located in a safe deposit box, an actual safe. Check with your parents, check with anybody that would have had access to this. If you're fresh out of high school, then if you can't find it, there's a good chance that the actual school still has it or at least has a copy of it. If you can't find it that way in the traditional sense, then contact your personal physician or a physician and see if they can't find it for you or have some kind of record for it. Because, doctors also have a network that has a lot of these records a part of them. Also, if you still can't get it that way, just have what's called a titer drawn. And it's just some blood work that a doctor will do, or they just get a sample of your blood and they will run a panel to make sure that the vaccines are still clear and good and that you don't need an update. This is one of those things that can be a one-stop shop where you go to get your physical done, which is the last page of your packets. And what that does, if you get this form filled out specifically at the doctor's office, this is all we need. I don't need anything more in depth than that, okay? But while you're doing this, having your physical done, if you need your MMR vaccinations for any reason, then you can have a blood draw there. You also have to have a TB scan, okay? So once again, one-stop shop, you can have it done there. I do not need a chest x-ray unless you are a known carrier that's going to test positive. And if that's the case, if you don't already have a record of that from your physician, then we are going to need some kind of chest x-ray clearing you. But that's one of those things, we'll cross that bridge as we get there. You just have to let me know if you are one of those known people, okay? All right, so forms that I'm going to have on JB Learning for you. Okay, so these are just some additional things that we ask all of our students to fill out, whether you're on campus or off campus. And these are things that are not going to be inside that initial packet. So I have to have a statement agreement. All right, statement of agreement. This is what basically reinforces that medical history form and the essential functions form. The essential functions form just means that you are physically capable of doing these things in the field. And it has some actual specifics there. So for example, you know that you're going to have to do some walking, you're going to have to potentially climb. And I don't mean like climbing a mountain, okay? You're not going to do anything crazy. This is not American Ninja Warrior, but you're going to have to go up flights of stairs. You're going to have to go down said stairs, that kind of stuff. You're going to have to bend, push, pull, lift. This all has to do with manipulating patients from their environment onto the stretcher and outside of the ambulance. All right, so you have to have that physical ability to do so. All right, know that we are going to the patient's environment. They're not always at home in a bedroom or in the living room. All right, a lot of accidents, a lot of these emergencies happen in the field, which means that we're going to have to go to them in that environment. So just know that there's uneven terrain out there. You must have good physical stamina, endurance. Once again, you don't have to be a member of a CrossFit gym and in the best shape of your life, but you do need to be able to, within reason, go to these calls and not have to take a break. All right, oh man, we just went down a flight of stairs. Give me 5 seconds. Let me catch my breath. You should not be in that type of shape. All right. We talk about lifting. We're talking about balancing at a excess of 125 pounds to 250 pounds with assistance. So you're not going to be manipulating a stretcher by yourself with a patient on it. All right. If there's a patient on it, at the minimum, it's going to be a 2-person job, if not more. But you have to have that ability to do so. You must be able to see different color spectrums. If not, that's okay. Just kind of let us know ahead of time. Me personally, I'm colorblind, but you better believe that's one of the things that I told my instructors. Hey, just so you know, I'm colorblind. This is my level of colorblindness. This is the spectrum that I can see. That is a disability that we will work with you in the field. But if it's worse than that, or you can't see color at all, you need to tell who you're doing rotations with. Hey, this is my limitations, so that we can work with you. You must have eyesight, and it has to be within at least one eye, and you have to have if not, some kind of correctable, like with glasses or with contacts. Okay, so if you have poor vision, you need to have some kind of way of correcting that, because we don't want you in an environment where you're having to look at every little thing potentially and missing things because you can't focus. So make sure you have that going for you. Good hand-eye coordination. You're gonna be multitasking. You're gonna have to put blood pressure cuffs on. You're gonna be doing one thing and also listening at the same time. All right, so you have to be able to do that. You have to read labels. You may not obviously start IVs. You may not give medications, but that medic that you're with may say, "Hey, hand me this." You have to be able to look in that box, read those labels, and hand them the right thing. You must be able to send and understand oral messages. Keep it simple. You got to communicate in this game, all right? Which means that you got to put your ideas out there, keep them simple, and be very concise with what you need, okay? So you got to be able to communicate. And then through your training through your classwork and just through practice in general, you're going to be able to figure out what's normal versus what's abnormal for your patients. So you have to be able to make that distinction. All right. The next one's the release of liability indemnification agreement. All right. Once again, um, just so you know, you are responsible for your actions. Okay. This is not just a fun afterthought class. This is a true potential life-saving certification that you're going to get. Okay. Which means that the environments and your actions can potentially have consequences. And if that's the case, you are responsible for those consequences, not us. Okay, we will provide you the information to learn, but if you're put in a situation where you don't understand or know how to do something, then it's your role as a student to say, hey, I don't know how to do that thing. Can you show me, or at least can you do it? All right, because if you do something that causes harm to yourself or the patient, then you are responsible for that, not us. Also know that you're going to be in environments where these are some very sick people. All right. Some people have chronic diseases, and some people have some really nasty diseases like HIV, AIDS, hepatitis, etc. And just know that you are responsible for making sure that you have the correct PPE on and that you're reducing the risk of those exposures. Obviously, I can't ride with you. I can't sit there and say, hey, don't forget to put your mask on. I heard this person has tuberculosis. All right. That is up to you to figure out that I need a mask for this airborne disease. All right. Next, we have your hepatitis B tetanus vaccination agreement. Okay. Here's the thing. We just got through saying that you are potentially going to be in an environment with people that have these diseases. And I'll go ahead and tell you that hepatitis is way more common than you think. When you get out there in the field, especially when you go to nursing homes, etc., you're going to find out that there are people that have hepatitis. Okay, they're not always going to be your meth head or drug user that has a ton of track marks and things like that. It can be somebody that has liver disease and it transitions into hepatitis. So, regardless, potentially contagious. So, if you're not guarding yourself from this, you're going to get this waiver that you sign off on. I'm not going to force you to get your hepatitis. I'm not going to force you to get your tetanus vaccination. But regardless, you need to sign this waiver, because if something happens and you're in one of these environments and you haven't protected yourself, I'm not liable for that. The fire college is not liable for that. You are. So if you don't want to do that, you don't want to go down that road, I'm not going to make you do it. But you need to sign this waiver. Get it to us. All right. And then following that is the insurance waiver. All right. For one reason or another, not everyone has insurance. I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to enforce it. Okay. But if you don't have health insurance and you don't have a way, you're going to have to sign this waiver and turn it in to us, because that just means that you realize that we're not footing the bill. If something were to happen to you on a call and you get injured, we are not responsible for that. That's under your statement of agreement. All right. You are responsible to have your own insurance, pay for your insurance, talking health insurance here. And if you don't, you're going to have to sign this waiver and submit it to us, and know that we are not liable for any kind of health insurance thing for you guys. You do have liability insurance, and it is very, very basic student liability insurance, which means that if something were to happen in the healthcare setting, it's going to cover like the legal aspect of it. It's not going to cover anything that has to do with you being hurt or injured. Okay, that is going to be up to your personal insurance to do so. All right, some other big submissions, and it's really just these two. All right, so I need a valid CPR certification. Okay, I'm not saying you have to have experience in actually performing CPR on a live person, but you do need a valid CPR certification. Okay, because you may be put on a rotation where you actually have to perform this, and I really want you to have the certification saying that you have the competencies to do this. But this is also something that you're going to need later on after you finish the class. So you're going to have it to sign up for registry, and you're going to have it when you sign up for your state licensure for the first time. So this is one thing that you can have done early on that you don't have to worry about anymore. It's just water under the bridge. You don't have to worry about it. It's usually good for 2 years at most services. I'm not even picky with the service that you use. I will say that AHA, the American Heart Association, and the Red Cross are the big two. Those are the ones that you're going to find testing locations at if you don't already have it. So we do offer a way that you can get it through us, and it's through AHA. Just know that if you go through that route, you'll have to do the online course, and then we'll figure out a way to test your skills so that you can get that certification. But it's not something that I offer to everyone. I have a lot of students that come here that already have CPR, and that's great. Go ahead and submit that to me, and I'll update your file and make sure that you're good to go. It just has to be good through the duration of this course. All right, you can't just have CPR and it expires 1 month into the course. If it does, you're going to have to re-up it. All right. It needs to be in date, and like I said, it has to be an official service. It doesn't have to be HA and Red Cross specifically, but it needs to be an actual teaching environment. It can't be somebody that taught CPR out the back of their car in a parking lot somewhere, and I give you a post-it note that says you're good to go. A good valid source will actually have the name of the company and the service. It'll say how long it's valid, what type of CPR it is, because there's multiple types, and it'll actually have an expiration date. All right, if it has all those things, it should be good to go, and it should have some kind of ID number. All right, next you see there is the rotation skills check sheet. All right, just know that you will need this before you do rotations. We'll go over this again in just a minute, and we'll go over it again in depth at the very beginning of your rotation orientation. All right, but this is a very simple form that just has a few skills on there, and they're very basic skills. It goes over how to take a blood pressure, the methods of which to do it, how to listen to lung sounds, how to obtain a blood glucose, and how to operate a stretcher. The reason why you have to do this before you get approved for rotations is because on almost every rotation that you go to, you're going to have to do at minimum one of those skills, if not more or even all of those things. So we want our students with the Alabama Fire College to have that ability before they go to the rotations. Another thing about your rotation skills and all skills in general, you do not have to come to us to get these skills done. Our requirement is that a nationally registered, state certified paramedic has to witness you and sign off on these skills. This could be anybody you know or work with, or if you don't have anybody like that, you can go to any of our testing sites. So once the class is underway, I will give you specific locations and actual phone numbers of people to call and contact that's hopefully within your area, that you can call up potentially and say, hey, I need these skills done. When's a good night, or when's a good time to come see you guys? And you'll work out a good time. I'll have all the paperwork for you that you'll bring with you, and you can just work out and start knocking those skills out. All right, so why are you here? How does this course work, right? So I'm going to explain to you how all this stuff works and how you're able to actually participate and complete this course and become a nationally registered, state certified EMT. So this is why you're here. So most people want to go into the EMS service, and one of the things that hampers them is the fact that they don't have time to go into a classroom setting. And it's very tough, especially I know here on campus, the only other option we have are 3 nighttime classes per semester. And some people don't have time to work all day and then rush and get here and then sit here until up to 10 o'clock at night. And it's understandable, especially you have family members, kids, stuff like that at home that you're also taking care of. So working with JB Learning, the state, and all other entities, we were able to come up with a program that makes it convenient for you to go through the same material that's offered on class and still meet the same requirements to be a emergency medical technician. So we're going to go over how exactly that's done. So first of all, we'll be using the JB Learning book and program. All right, so the way that works is you will first of all buy this book. All right, and I don't mean just order it off Amazon. You can, but you're going to miss the key component. So what we require is the Emergency Care and Transportation of the Sick and Injured 12th edition. All right, and it's pictured here. It'll look very similar to this, but notice that there's a big purple card sitting on it, right? And that's because it indicates that this is the premier package. Okay, this is your golden ticket. Without this premier package slip that comes in with this book, you will not be able to participate in the online classroom. All right, without that purple tag that comes with your book, when you flip it over, there's going to be a little scratch off code. That is the digital key that gets you into the classroom. All right, and then you'll be able to use the course ID that I provide on the introductory email that gets you into the classroom for your specific class. All right, but if you get the book and the book alone, it will not come with this card. If it's prepackaged, it will come with an orange card, and it's going to be missing the entire class. And so it doesn't mean you can't still enroll, but just know that if you have to get the actual digital, you have to get the digital key for this class by itself, you're going to have to go straight through Jones and Bartlett, and it is quite expensive to go that way. So if you haven't already bought your book, this is it. This is one you want. The good news is the first week there are no assignments due. I spend the whole week making sure that you guys can get logged in. And this is generally when we find that somebody's bought the wrong edition and things like that. And so good news is I will help you through that entire process. I will make sure that you have the right book and that you have the right code. And if not, I'll make sure that you find it. And I've sent people the actual website information where all you got to do is click and it takes you right to it. So if you're in this situation, you'll know to contact me and we'll get there. But this is it. You have to have this edition of the book, and it has to be the premier package. And the good news is if you get it from our bookstore, that you'll know 100% that you got the right one. But it's up to you to request the correct edition. All right. If you go online, there is a specific category for the online course, and everything there is stuff that you can safely purchase. But if you don't click the right one, you might buy the wrong edition on accident. And the bookstore staff is pretty good about checking with you to make sure that you're getting the right edition. But make sure that if they don't ask you, you tell them, hey, I need the online textbook, and they'll make sure you get the right edition. If for some reason you order the book and they send you the wrong edition, or you just got it wrong, do not unwrap it. If it comes to you and it does not have the purple card, leave it in the shrink wrap, send it back, and they'll make sure you get the right edition, okay? Once you take that clear plastic off the book, though, it is non-refundable. They will not take it back. Jones and Bartlett will not take it back. So please do not unwrap it until you know for 100% that you have that premier package edition with the purple card on it. All right, coursework and quizzes. So when you get into the online classroom, it's just that, okay? So it's called an interactive lecture is how it works. And it's not something that is a PowerPoint like we're doing now, or even a video that you just hit the play button and then let it do its thing and you get distracted and do something else, okay? It is an interactive lesson, which means that it is going to start playing some things, but periodically throughout that lesson, it's going to stop and ask you questions, and you're going to have to participate or it will not finish. All right. So, for example, you may get to the heart chapter and it's talking about the heart, and all of a sudden it stops and it says, "Hey, how many chambers are in the heart?" And you're going to have to answer that, right or wrong. Or it may say, "Hey, how does blood flow through the heart?" Write it down, type it in there. All right. So it's going to actually get you to interact inside this classroom so that you're not just sitting there zoned out and you have no idea what's going on. You're going to actively be a part of it. So there's one of those for every single chapter in the book, okay? And so within each one of those chapters, there is a quiz afterwards. You have to maintain a score of 85 or better on the quizzes. Now the good news is you can take the quizzes unlimited times to get that desired score of an 85, all right? But here's the bad news, all right? You cannot just go straight to the quiz. All right, there's not a tab that says, all right, take me to the quiz. So if you go through this and you get a low score and you need to get that score up, then that means that you're going to have to start that lesson all over again just to get to the quiz. Okay, so keep that in mind. So you want to be as tentative as possible, understand the material before you say, yes, I want to take that quiz. Okay, but you can take the quizzes as many times as possible just to get that, that 85 that you need. All right, now let's talk about the exams. All right, a little bit different. So the exams, there is no lesson specifically for the exam. So the way it works is you're going to have, on average, complete at least 3 chapter quizzes before an exam will unlock. And you can't just go straight to an exam. Some of you guys are going to want to, you might know everything there is about incident command system or something like that, and you're going to try to go straight to the exam. Not the case. All right. At minimum, you're going to have at least 3 chapters of quizzes that you're going to have to complete before the exam is unlocked. And at that point, you can take the exam. Later chapters, there'll be anywhere from 4 to 5 chapters before the exam will unlock. So just keep that in mind. So if you've taken three chapter quizzes and the exam still has not unlocked, look at it again, because it may be the fact that you need to do more than 3 actual chapters for that exam to unlock. All right. There are a total of 11 exams, and that will cover chapter 1 all the way to chapter 42. Okay. Those are just your standard chapter exams. There are 2 final prep exams, Final Prep A and Final Prep B. Final Prep A will cover the first half of your chapters, and Final Prep B will cover the second half. Okay? All these will cover the 42 chapters. There will only be 1 attempt at exams. I repeat, 1 attempt at exams. So it's not like the quizzes that you can take over and over and over and over again. You only get 1 attempt at the exams, okay? An 85 is considered passing, okay? It doesn't mean that you're a failure, but the higher you keep this average, the better and easier it is for you to maintain it for that final average that you need to pass the course. So that's not to say that if you have a rough chapter and you get a 79 on the exam that you might as well withdraw from the class. No, you can definitely come back for that. In fact, I have a couple of assignments in there that kind of help keep you guys on the edge, outside from the edge of this bubble, where you can stay in the 85 range and beyond. But just know that we expect that 85 in order, and there is a method and a reason for this. Okay, we set this to such a high grade point because I'm not there with you. Right. I don't have, although you can reach out to me, call me, send me emails to answer questions, I'm not there when you go through this, when you learn material. So the way that I can basically help you to understand this material and get a good grasp of it is just to give you a lot of questions, okay, that cover a lot of different things. And then I set that average higher because if you can maintain an 85 by the end of the end of this course, then when it comes time to taking registry, you should be good. You should be able to complete registry in 1 attempt, if not just the first couple. But the higher average is there to help you out in the end. Some other things. The exams are timed, okay? So you can't just start an exam and then after answering 10 questions, take a break, walk away, and then come back and hit the play button and continue to go. That's not how it works. So first of all, they are due Sunday by midnight. Okay? At Sunday at midnight, at 12:01 a.m., that thing shuts down. So if you're in the middle of taking that test and you're on question number 25 of 150, it's going to shut off on you, and then everything you didn't answer at that point is automatically graded as a 0. 0 points are awarded. Okay, so make sure that when you sit down to take that exam, that you allot the amount of time needed to complete that exam. Some tests are going to be shorter, some are going to be a lot longer, depending on the material you're going over and how many chapters that you're expected to cover. All right, so they're timed. You're going to have approximately 1 minute per question. Some questions you're going to be able to answer like that and move on. Okay, and that's great. But there are some where you're going to have a scenario sitting there in front of you, and you're going to actually have to think through it, decode what that's actually asking you, and plan accordingly. And it may take you a couple of minutes to get through it, but on average, with the material that's on the test, it'll equal about 1 minute per question. Okay. All right. So, like I said, if you don't complete it by the deadline, it's going to shut off on you. Okay. So make sure you have a lot of time. Now, I understand that life happens. All right. We live in here, most of us live in Alabama here, especially certain parts get stormier, power goes out, there are rural areas, etc. If something like that happens, your power goes out, all right, and you're unable to take the test for whatever reason. Maybe there's a tornado ripping through your town, okay? All right, I don't expect you to just ride the storm out literally and try to take that test. All right, I want you guys to be safe. And if an emergency like that happens, just reach out to me and I can reschedule it for you and open it for you for a later time. All right, but you have to tell me as soon as possible. All right, the time to do that is not 3 days after the exam was due, and now you're like, oh, here's why, is because I was on vacation. Well, if I don't know you're on vacation, we can't plan accordingly around it. So reach out if there's ever an issue, especially around these exam times. All right, assignments. What are some things that you're going to be doing? Well, your big one that I'm going to offer you is a research paper. Now, this is not a PhD thesis, okay? This is like a little 3-paper medical research thing where I even give you the topics to choose from, okay? You got 5 to choose from. You can do chest pain, asthma, anaphylaxis, diabetes, CHF. Any of those are perfectly okay, all right? And the goal of you picking these topics is I would actually pick one that I wasn't the best on, all right? So if I didn't know what CHF was, that'd be a good one to go into and do a paper on, because hopefully through that process, I personally would learn more about this disease process. And then when I encounter it on exam, test, whatever, I can answer better. So that's what it's designed for, to kind of help you get more knowledge. All right. What are some parameters for it? I don't have like one particular format that I push. Okay. What I do want you to do is, first of all, tell me who you are. Sure, you're going to be submitting it through JB Learning, but I still want your name to be on your paper. Okay. That way I can always look at it and make sure I'm grading the right paper. Okay. Also, organize it. I want you to break up your train of thought into different paragraphs. I do not want one big wall of text, okay? Because if you send me just a paper that's a wall of text, it makes it very, very tough to get through and to see how you're trying to express yourself, okay? So don't be afraid to start a new paragraph when you're changing the tone, the subject, whatever. Just make a new paragraph. It's okay. I want not just a bibliography that says what sources you use for the paper. I want you to include those within the text itself. Okay. Don't sit there and write your paper and then say, hey, here are my sources. All right. I can't go through that paper and figure out, oh, yeah, it looks like something that came out of the textbook. Oh, yeah, it looks like that came from the CDC. You need to put, hey, it came from this source, even if it's just a number or a quick author name, page number. It needs to be within the text, okay? That just lets me know that you're not copying something, okay? And so, speaking of copying, let's not get online and type in ChatGPT, please write me a paper on diabetes, because guess what? The first thing I do when you guys send me a paper is I plug it into a lot of these programs. And so if I find that you have copied this or you've got it from another source, you get a 0 and it gets escalated. It goes to my program director and it keeps going up the chain. And then you might be put in a position where you're either withdrawn from the class or you're banned from even doing any other programs here at the fire college. All right, so some of you guys, that may not be a big deal, but some of you guys that are in fire, that means that if you cheat and you're banned from this campus, you're not able to take your certifications with fire college anymore. So don't waste your career on a 3-page paper, okay? Make sure you do the work. I would rather see, what you think about this topic and how you got to that decision than you copying somebody else. So don't sit there and think, I'm not an English teacher. All right. If you haven't heard already how I talk and all that, look, I'm not going to grade you crazy like, you forgot to use punctuation here or that. I mean, if it's extremely bad, I'll make a note of it, but it's not going to fill a paper. All right. I want to hear your thoughts on these topics, not somebody else's. That's what's important. All right. So just don't copy. Don't look. I got the things I'm going to plug it into, so please don't be tempted to do it. Okay. You'll have ample time to do it, and it's going to be really beneficial for your grade in the end. Next, a study guide. All right, you're going to be making your own study guide. All I'm going to do is I'm going to send you the study guide parameters. It's actually going to have the form, and you're going to have to write it out. Most of it's abbreviations and acronyms and things like that that you're going to encounter in your text anyway. But there's definitions in there. There's some pharmacology in there. There's even things about the heart in there. Okay, very easy. It seems like it's just busy work, but if you use it for what it's intended for, then by the time you finish it and you get ready to take registry in the final, it's going to be a great benefit to you. So used to, I said, hey, I don't care if it's handwritten or typed. This time around, guys, it has to be handwritten. All right. Because I really want you guys to do this. I know it seems like busy work, but I'm telling you, in the end, it's going to help you. So this time I am going to enforce that you have to handwrite it. All right. And notice that last bullet point there, both assignments are mandatory. All right. There's a grade attached to these two assignments. And if you do not do them, if you do not complete them, it is a 0 that will get factored into your average. So please do these very beneficial and easy assignments. Okay. All right. Uniform requirement. All right. Doesn't make a lot of sense because you're online. And look, here's the thing. I'm not going to enforce this, obviously, when you're at home typing this stuff up and going through the assignments, okay? While you're at home, do what you got to do. This uniform requirement really just is here for when you do your rotations and when you go to skills, okay? That's what your uniform requirement is for. So, as it says, you got to wear it during skill sessions and rotations. So when you come to campus or you go to a site or with somebody, you need to have something that says who you are. So it starts with your AFC polo. You got to get it from the bookstore. It looks very similar to what I'm wearing. It's just yours is not going to say, staff on it. It's just going to be navy blue polo with this same logo on it. Okay. It just says EMT student underneath it. And so this lets that facility know, that person know that you're doing skills or rotations with, that you are in fact a student. All right, obtain it through the bookstore. You can order it online, they'll ship it to you. All right, you don't have to have it day one of class, but you have to have it before that first skill session or before that first rotation, okay? Next, khaki pants. All right, I'm not going to police brands or anything like that. Do what you got to do, okay? But it needs to be a khaki color, and it needs to be, it could be a regular old khaki or it can be a BDU style. What does BDU mean? Cargo pants, all right? But it needs to be a khaki color because the reason why is because it's very easy to obtain, right? We can all go to Walmart and get us a pair of Dickies if we need to, all right? There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to have the greatest pair of 511 tactical pants there is. Do what is affordable to you, but it needs to be very presentable. All right. I use Dickies as an example because it is affordable, it is readily available. All right. And they're pretty tough. And if something were to happen to them, they're easily replaceable. Okay. So make sure you get something that you don't mind getting dirty in these environments. And if something was to happen to them, they're very easy to replace. Black shoes. Okay. Black shoes. It needs to be non-porous. It needs to be something that you can't slip into. All right, because if you can slip into them, it means you can slip out of them. So you're not wearing Crocs to your rotations. You're not wearing Crocs to these skills locations, okay? And to be a black shoe. Just pay attention, make sure it doesn't have a big giant Nike swoosh on the side, okay? They can't be very annoying and something that stands out. It's super distracting, okay? It needs to be solid black if possible. And like I said, just be mindful of these environments you're potentially. Now, you don't have to go out and buy the biggest, fanciest work boots there are or tactical boots there are, okay? Especially if you're going to be one and done with this kind of stuff. But it needs to be something that's black, that is easy to clean. And If you have a pair of on clouds, there's a chance that if they are not waterproof, that if you get some kind of bodily fluid like blood or worse on them, it's going to soak through your shoe, and that's not going to be good. So just keep that in mind. Let's talk about jewelry. All right, I'm not anti-jewelry. All right, watches needs to be something simple. Apple Watch, G-Shock, Timex, Casio, that kind of stuff. Great. All right. But don't wear a Rolex or something super fancy that somebody's potentially going to rob you or steal from you. Okay. That's why we don't want you to wear that kind of watch. All right. Earrings. Stud earrings are okay, but do not wear those big shiny diamonds that are sticking out. We don't want you getting robbed for, especially if they're fake diamonds, then it's really not worth it. But we don't get you robbed. We don't want anything distracting. But your dangly or your hoop style earrings, stay away from those. Because if you didn't know that, that essentially is a handle or a grenade pin for somebody to pull on, and we don't want that. Okay, we don't want you getting injured because of the earrings. So if you got earrings, just make sure it's the very small, very unobtrusive ones. Okay. Now, talking about other rings, the nose rings. All right, the ones that are in the nostrils that are really simple studs are okay, but those septum rings that are in the middle, a lot of people don't like those right now. So if you have one of those, you're either going to have to take it out or at least flip it in like a kickstand where it's not visible. Okay. But if you go to a site and they see that and they're like, hey, you can't have that, you're going to have to pull it out. All right. That's their rules. All right. So whatever they say goes. Tattoos, not against tattoos. Most people don't mind them now, but just be mindful that if you have a Post Malone face tattoo, can't have it. You got to put some makeup on, okay? Neck tattoos got to be covered up. Usually collar's pretty good about that, but I mean, we don't want anything where it's like a dotted line going across your neck saying cut here. Just can't be offensive, guys and gals. You can't have like pictures of naked ladies on your arms showing off. Like when you go to a nursing home and grandma sees that on your arm, it's going to freak them out. All right. So just be careful. If you think it's something that your grandma wouldn't like seeing, then you probably need to cover it up. But other than that, no face, no neck type tattoos. Those absolutely have to be covered up. All right, let's get into skills. You got two sets. We've already mentioned the rotation skills check sheet. And like I said, that's the basic skills. That's the ones where you actually have to learn how to obtain a blood pressure. In both methods of doing that, it's the oscillating, listening to breath sounds, differentiating, what they are, where they're located, how to operate a stretcher. And there's a lot too, just other than hitting a button. Like if you have a completely manual system, you need to know how that thing works safely and how to obtain a blood glucose reading. Very simple, but still, you got to know how to do it before we can release you to do rotations. Lastly, you have a skills tracker here. This is the skill set number 2. This is the more in-depth skills. This is the one that they're not all due at one time. This skills tracker is due towards the end of your semester, and that's because there's so many of them that you just need to practice them over and over and over until you finally get to the end and submit them to me. These are the ones that you're either going to go to a skills location, or you might get lucky in some of the places that you do rotations at. Some of those proctors are really good with helping with these, but do not depend on a rotation to help you knock these skills out, okay? If you got a proctor or someplace that doesn't want to help with that, that's fine, but just know that you're going to have to contact either a skills location or have access to a paramedic to help walk you through and get you checked off on these skills. All right, you need to, you're going to have to get tested on 2 skills at the end. Obviously, I can't do it, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a medical assessment skills and a trauma assessment skills for your proctors in the field to sign off on. This is going to be a skills location and or a paramedic that creates a scenario for you guys, or you can come here. All right, but regardless, you're going to have to go through 2 scenarios, one medical based and one trauma based, and that'll be what clears you for skills. So the good news is that all this stuff will be available when you open up your JV Learning. You'll see a tab that says rotation and skills, and you'll just open that up and you'll have all the paperwork that you need for it. If I can make this easier on you, don't you worry, I will. All right. If I have to make a way that you can submit it to me via JV Learning, I will. But as of right now, skills will get emailed directly to me. And like I said, rotations are going to be handled in its own. It's so in depth that it has to have its own orientation. Okay. So that's how we're going to handle rotations. So, but to reiterate, a paramedic is required to check skills. All right. It can be any paramedic that you know. It can be somebody you know, live with, have access to at a fire department, know works for the ambulance service, whatever the case may be. That individual can check you off on your skills. They can sign off on it and say that you're good. They just actually have to be an active paramedic. They have to have a license number because everything they sign has to have that license number on it. So that if I have any questions, I can call them up and say, hey, did so and so come in on that day and really do this many skills? They have to say yes or no. Okay. So if you do not have access, like I said, I have a few approved skills locations. I don't have like a ton of them, but I have enough that cover multiple corners of the state of Alabama. So you should be able to get to one of those. Those should be available to you. All right, and so not going to go over everything that has to do with rotations. Like I said, complete orientation onto itself, okay? You'll have a separate orientation video just for rotations. All right, but just in a nutshell, you got to complete 48 hours total, all right? 0 hospital. You guys are only going to do field rotations. That means it has to be a transport capable fire or an ambulance service. All right, and then within those 48 hours, you have to have 20 patient contacts. Okay, so that's how we do rotations here with the Life-Paced students. All right, communication. Like I said, I don't live with you guys. I don't get to check in with you because I'm going to be honest with you. There are a lot of you guys. Okay. So I wish that I could give you all one-on-one time and look through and see how you're doing and follow up with you on things. But there's just not enough time in the day and I don't have, the time to do that with each and every one of you guys. So how do we talk? Well, here, email is the primary. All right, email is the primary means of communication. Okay, so when you sign up for this class, when you registered for that class, you provided an email. All right, and before you even got to jump in on this video, you should have received an email or two leading up to the start of this class. Just checking in to make sure that you gave a good email. All right, so that email that you provided is how I will communicate to you. All right, so you're going to see that a lot of emails are for the entire class, where when you look at that email list, you see that it is multiple class members. Okay, so that means that's an email that went out to everybody. Okay, so don't just assume that when you receive an email, it's targeted directly to you. All right, the reason why I say that is because at some point in the semester, I will have to send an email to nudge people along. Like, hey guys, don't forget that the drug screen background check is due on this day. Some of you haven't done it. If you receive that, that's probably that first initial email that goes out to everybody. Doesn't mean I'm targeting you specifically. Just because you receive something doesn't mean you did anything wrong. All right. So, but that's how I do it. I have to do email communication to almost everybody at one time. And then there are other times where I will reach out directly to you, and you'll know because it'll be specific to you. All right. So let's talk about some email etiquette. Okay. Please don't hit reply to every single email. All right. What happens when you do that? It creates a very, very long chain. And so as everybody keeps hitting reply, it keeps getting longer and longer and longer. And what that means is if you have an important question and you just replied to that initial email, it's going to be a minute before I get to it because I have to go through every single one of those replies until I get to it. All right. And sometimes those guys just get lost. All right. They get lost and unfortunately I don't get to answer it as quickly as I want to. Okay. So just be careful about replying to every single thing. All right. So my advice to you is if you have a question, create a email and say, hey, I have a question about this. All right. So maybe it's like skills question. All right. That's your subject. All right. And then ask me your question. All right. Or, hey, I have a question about this exam, and then fill it in, okay? Don't just hit reply and then put your question there. Because if you start a brand new email and send it to me, I'm going to answer that faster because it's going to come directly to me. I don't have to sit there and go through every single reply before I get to it, okay? So if you have a question, create a new email, all right? Simple as that. All right. If you haven't heard from me within a day or less, reach back out to me. Okay. That means that either the email got lost or maybe I was, like I said, I don't just do this. I also work in the field. So there's a chance that maybe I had an extremely busy shift and I got delayed in getting back to you. So if you haven't heard within that first day, reach out to me, follow up, okay? Because there's a reason for it. All right. I'm pretty decent about getting back to you guys as fast as possible. So as long as you hit those criteria, I'm going to get back to you in a reasonable amount of time. Um, at the end of this, you're going to get all of my contact information, but every time I send you an email, you're going to get my contact information again. So you always have it available to you. Okay. The best time frame to reach me is between the hours of 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. I mean, if you send me an email at 5 in the morning, I'm not going to just jump out of bed and answer that thing. Now, there are times where I am up at that early and I may reply right away. All right. But if you send me an email at 11:30 at night, there's a chance that I don't get to it until the next day. All right. So usually between 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. is when I'm going to get to it. After that point, may fall the next day or later before I get to it. All right. So some things I need to reiterate here. This is after a few semesters of doing this, I've decided to just reach out to you guys and make sure that you understand how this works. Okay. So I will only reply or answer to the email account that you registered for this class. Okay. So if you come back and ask me a question from a different address, I'm here to tell you that if I have not already marked it as a safe email, um, the fire college's firewall is pretty stout, and there's a chance that if I've never received anything from you from a certain email before, it's going to filter it out, and then it may not even deliver it to me. Okay, so you have to send it to me from that initial email. Now, if something happens and you need to change your email, reach out to me, and we'll make those considerations. But don't just switch gears on me in the middle of class and just hope that I get everything. All right. If you're using a different address, all of a sudden you may miss some communication. So make sure you tell me. All right. I will not share your grades or progress with anyone. I legally cannot do that. Okay. I cannot do that. So by law, your progress in this class, your grades in this class are protected. Okay. The reason why I say that is I understand there are employers out there and family members that are actually paying for this course. However, if you have not given us permission to give those grades or any kind of progress to the family member or the employer, I can't do it for you. All right. And I'm here to tell you that there are some of you out there that have family members, especially moms and dads, that are trying to make sure that you're staying on top of this stuff. They're going to try to overstep their bounds and reach out and stuff like that. And I can't do it. I'm not going to do it. All right. You are enrolled into this course, which means ultimately you are responsible for staying on track and making sure assignments are getting done. All right. So if you get far behind because of your actions, and I have a family members that's out there trying to check in on you, I can't do anything. All right. That's all on you. All right. So that being said, no other third party can make a decision on your behalf. Okay. So, for example, if you're having a tough time in class and mom or dad reaches out to me and says, listen, this is not what we thought it was going to be. Junior is going to have to withdraw from the class. Well, until Junior reaches out to me and withdraws from the class, they're going to keep on going. Okay. Or maybe they think that you're struggling in the class. The thing is, if they call and they reach out on your behalf, I still can't act. Okay. It's still, this class is your responsibility, not a third party. Same thing with employers. all right? They can't come out and make decisions on your behalf as well. Every decision and outcome in this class stems from you, the student, all right, and nobody else. All right, due dates. Let's talk about how this class works with due dates. All right, so when we originally created the inception of this program, there weren't due dates, all right? There was just a time frame like, hey, class starts here, it ends here. And you had free reign of doing this. And we found out that was a horrible idea because we had students all over the place. We had some that were really excited and would zoom through the class and do it at a very acceptable rate. And then we had some that were not self-starters and they would just kind of procrastinate, and then just fall off altogether. They would just get to a point where it was impossible to complete the class. So we figured out, hey, we can still do this in that same time frame as a traditional semester, but the way that I can keep you guys on target is to create due dates. And so that's why you have all exams with the due dates. So as long as you stay on target with those due dates, I don't care how you complete the material to get to that point, but as long as you stay on target with your due dates, you will complete this course in the desired amount of time, okay? Now, you as a student can work as far ahead as you wish. All right, just because there are due dates doesn't mean that you have to do them on those days. You can actually complete assignments ahead of time as long as you're hitting those milestones. Okay, and so it is entirely possible for you to finish this course before the last day of class. All right, currently I have students in the class that was finishing up. I have one that finished almost 2 months ahead of schedule. Had nothing going on, was able to complete all the assignments, complete all the rotations, and was done almost 2 months ahead of time. I have a lot of students that finished up about 3 weeks prior to the end of the class. So it is entirely possible to get ahead, all right? It's just as long as you hit these due dates, these milestones will keep you on track with completing the course by the end of that last day of class. All right, withdrawal from the class. Okay, undoubtedly I get students that just fall off. For one reason or another, they just stop participating and completing exams and things of that nature. I will make my efforts in reaching out to those students and saying, hey, just notice that you haven't taken the last exam, or hey, you're 2 exams behind now, but it's still your responsibility to withdraw from the class, okay? And there are benefits to withdrawing from the class, all right? Some of you guys, this will show up as a failure on some kind of transcript from the fire service or others, and we don't want this looking bad on your career potentially. So if you can't complete this course because of grades or other reasons, just withdraw from the class. All right, you'll have to contact registration and they will help you with that withdrawal process. It's painless, it's not a big deal. All right, life happens, things happen. All right, so let's talk about some of the withdrawal policies. All right, if you get through this class and you open up JB Learning and you're like, oh my goodness, what have I gotten myself into? Or maybe you figure out that, oh my gosh, I don't think I could see somebody's bone potentially being outside of their body, okay? Well, after that first week, you'll get 75% of your tuition back. All right, maybe you stick it out longer and you get that second week. All right, at that second week, you'll get half of or 50% of your tuition. All right, and then at the third week and beyond, no refunds. All right, and notice how it says tuition in that keyword. It doesn't mean tuition and everything else that you bought. Okay, it doesn't mean that you're going to get your tuition back and your drug screen and your whatever other things that you're going to need in this course. All right, it only covers the tuition. All right, you can't just bring your polo back and say, hey, I only wore this one time. Can I get my money back? Nope, only the tuition. Okay, so here it is. Here I am, black and white there. There's my name, your EMS training specialist. That is my email address. That is where all of the information that I communicate to you stems from. All right, notice it says .org and not .com, not .gov. That is my email address. So if you don't have it already, there it is. That first number is my office number. All right, I don't live out of my office, but a good chunk of my time is spent in that command center, just making sure I'm watching you guys, keeping your grades and all that stuff. All right, so I am there more times than I'm not. All right. But I do got to go home every now and then, right? I do got to sleep. I do got all kinds of things. Or I may just be on my other shift job. Okay. And so if you reach out to me and you don't hear anything from my cell phone, I mean, my office number, you can contact my cell phone number. Okay. Now, contrary to belief, I have not inputted all of your phone numbers into my cell phone number. Okay. So if you do decide to call my cell phone number or text me, be sure to identify yourself that, hey, I am so and so from your life-paced EMT class. That should be the first thing that you do. And then whatever question you got to add. Because when you sit there and contact me and you say, hey, I'm so and so, I don't know all your names yet. I don't have all your phone numbers yet. So it's going to take me a second. And you may say, hey, I'm from the EMT class. Well, then I'm going to follow up with which one? Because I also help out with the on-campus stuff too. So make sure you identify yourself when you contact me. All right. And remember those time frames. All right. 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. If you go to contact me and it is midnight, I'm not going to answer you. All right. Unless you have an emergency. So if you're on a rotation and something happens, absolutely reach out to me. But don't call me for any and every little thing in this class. All right. Not knowing the answer to a question is not an emergency. Okay. Now, if you do have an issue with the JB learning system and it's not working, I do want you to reach out to me. But until then, it needs to be something has to be wrong for you to reach out to me via my phone past that 8 p.m. Okay. So, all right. I think that's the brunt of everything. Like I said, you're going to have an email that came before this that covers all this as well. But I just wanted you guys to have access to me. So for some reason, if you were not able to attend the Zoom orientation that was linked to that first email, not a problem. At any time during the semester, if you're unclear on something, you can come in here, you can look at this orientation video, and then you can say, well, you said in the video this thing. All right, so you have something. But what you don't have anymore is you don't have an excuse to say, well, I didn't know. All right, you do know and you do have access to this stuff. So whether you actually watch this like you should and turn in all the paperwork, that's on you. That is your responsibility. But you can't just say, I didn't know. All right, I didn't know is not an excuse. So once again, I'm available to you guys. If you need help with anything for the most part, I will do my best to help you. And if I don't have that answer, I will get you that answer. Okay, but good luck in the semester. If you need anything and I can help in any way, just feel free to reach out. Other than that, good luck.